John Collins. I'm one of the Executive Creative Directors here at Dare Vancouver.
And I'm Jon Haywood, I'm the Planning Director here at Dare Vancouver.
Okay, can you guys tell me a little bit about the culture at Dare?
Ooh, Dare's a really fun place to work. We kind of have this approach of lots of collaboration. So as you kind of saw from the tour, there's lots of people kind of mixed up from different capabilities. We don't have six over here, the creators over here, and the planners over here. We kind of like to mix a bit because a lot more kind of ideas and a lot more work comes from those kind of collaborative conversations. So it's certainly a place where you should be expected to participate a lot, and that's not just in work as well. That's kind of like the fun, pleasure activities that we do kind of out of office hours.
I'd say we're a very idea-focused agency. We focus more of our time on developing powerful ideas and less on, certainly less on crafting them for presentation. We craft later on, but you know, I think we work hard. We try to do the sort of 9 to 5, 9 to 6 kind of thing, working as hard as we can, and encourage people to get out. And I think we party pretty hard too. I think at Lotus Awards last year, Dare was the we cleaned up the dance floor.
That was my first Vancouver award ceremony as well, so it was a good eye opener for a break anyway. That was very good.
Yeah, it was fun times.
It's a good place to work and it's fun. Yeah.
Okay, how would someone go about interning at Dare?
That's pretty easy. You just contact us through, I think it might be info at thisisdare.com.
Yeah, I think if you do that on the website, you can.
Yeah, that gets to Janet, and she just passes it on to the appropriate person. If we're talking about creative, it goes to Rob and I, and we love having interns. We give them real life experience, and I really enjoy seeing the difference between what they've learned in school and what they really have to do. We actually just had 2 interns who just left us a few weeks ago, and they really enjoyed their experience. You know, they were from they were from ACAT, and you know, we gave them a good idea of the difference between design and art direction, and they got to really feel what that's like and spend time in both departments, and they were definitely shocked at what the reality of working in an agency is, but they really liked the experience. It was good for us too.
Okay.
Because we give them real briefs, we get something from it as well, but I think that's the only way that they can really learn. I mean, sometimes they work as support for someone as they're preparing a pitch or something, and sometimes they have their own briefs.
We give them the real thing. Yeah.
Okay, what are you guys looking for creatively when you look at an intern?
Well, I'd say, well, it depends, of course, on the job, but for me, I would talk about, you know, designers, art directors, and writers. For designers and art directors, we're looking for, well, designers, it's more about craft. It's great if you can be idea-based as well. It's a bit more rare, and it's not as necessary, but in art direction, you're looking for craft as well as ideas. I think initially we know that people from the art side, their talents aren't going to be where they can be. So what we look for is their taste to be at a high level, so that their craft can get up to that level at a later time. So we look for taste, we look for skill and ability to ideate. And with copywriting, it's more focused on the ideas, and I have to have some kind of an indication that you can actually write and you have some unique voice. I think voice tends to come out a little bit later as you've been writing for a couple of years. Some people have it early on and are able to change tone and stuff, but I don't judge that quite as harshly. I'm more interested in your attitude and your ability to think and come up with creative solutions for ideas.
And from a planning perspective, I think it's there's a lot of kind of crossover there, but ultimately it's the kind of people who are like really inquisitive in this world and who like to kind of look at things and pull them apart and kind of dissect the information. It's also people who kind of can take a lot of information and start distilling it down into things and kind of understanding how the world works. So again, a creatively questioning mind.
How did both of you get into advertising?
How long have you got? I'm a weird one, so I started off, I wanted to be a forensic scientist, so I started off, I've done a degree in chemistry and a PhD in chemistry, and I started working for a science PR agency, and from kind of science PR I kind of ventured into this new kind of crazy world of advertising. and it's been 17 years of like a kind of a really unusually exciting journey there. And in a strange way, I still think I do forensic science. I don't necessarily look at blood splatters, but I look at kind of advertising crime scenes and try and kind of break down the problem and find out who the culprit is.
He used to build the lasers.
Yeah, I've got a laser somewhere in the world with my name on it.
I sometimes joke that I'm in advertising because I drank too much. Because I was supposed to go to university and I drank too much, and so I didn't get into university. And I had applied to college sort of on a whim, and the only one that I had applied to that sounded interesting was advertising. And I went into it, and I thought that media sounded interesting, and I realized that wasn't my bag. And then I wanted to be an art director. And so when I graduated from Centennial College, that's what I tried to do. And everyone told me I was just a crap art director. But then my writing was pretty good. And, so I kept trying to be an art director, and everyone kept telling me that I can write, but I'm a terrible art director, so I eventually gave in and became a writer. And it turned out that I was pretty good at it, so that was 18 years ago.
Don't stop believing, Brian.
I think copywriters seem to always have funny stories. They don't. Now Humber College is here, and there's a place in Canada to go where you can actually learn that craft. But before that, there really wasn't, and it's just funny. Writers seem to come from all over, but generally it's sitting on the couch, pointing at the TV, saying I can do that better, and then eventually looking into how to do that.
I never knew that about you.
Yeah.
Watch Drake Bob, man.
Where do you guys find your creative inspiration?
That's one of those endless sort of questions, and there's a lot of tips and tricks that you learn along the way to think more creatively and to break out of sort of the writer's block and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, creativity is your butt in a chair. And I'm not the one who originally said that. I can't remember exactly who it was, but that's what it comes down to. I mean, you just have to sit and work at it. You just got to be dedicated and not let your mind wander to the internet too much, not gossip too much. Spend as much time as you can thinking about the problem and rethinking the problem. But it's just, honestly, it's a skill like anything else. Your brain's a muscle, and if you use it a lot creatively and you focus on it, you'll get better and you'll do good work.
I kind of think there's something for me which is actually kind of, and it's great in Vancouver where you kind of really get the life-work balance right, is a lot of creativity comes from just living and not necessarily kind of experiencing what happens out there and kind of seeing what else goes on out there. So it's not necessarily looking at the kind of the intellectualized planning blogs, but it's kind of just reading news and seeing how brands react to things out there and how we all take and how people respond to world events such as disasters or concerts or whatever. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Living a life is kind of how we get creative, I think.
I heard that a lot when I was a young creative, was that you have to live, you have to experience things, and I didn't know what they meant, to be honest, until I started traveling more and started meeting more people and being inspired by more things, and I started to realize that the creative that you come up with tends to be a result of everything you've been thinking about for the last 6 months and everything you've been experiencing, and it just seems to be always a mashup of your current experiences or your past experiences, and that's probably why a team is so much better, is because you're not just combining your own experiences and thoughts but somebody else's. But it's really true.
It happens, and some of my best ideas happen. I stopped at a bus stop the other day to write something down, because it's like suddenly just hours and hours of thinking about it at my desk and nothing was coming to, and then literally walking past the bus stop, I had to sit down, and this guy then sat down and ate his apple pie next to me. I was scribbling this idea down madly, so it's random.
I write notes to myself at 2 in the morning because I think the idea is so good that I don't want to fall asleep. I write it, and then I wake up in the morning and I see this note that makes no sense at all. It's never actually been a good idea. We should just sleep.
I think I remember seeing a Fink interview once, and this really impressive guy. He's got these massive credentials in kind of the UK for some great campaigns, and he talked about how nervous he'd always be going into a creative brief because the pressure was on to come up with the idea there and then. And he said a lot of the time the ideas just kind of come randomly throughout the day, or when you're in another meeting, or actually when you're in the shower or on the tube or whatever. So it's kind of different for different people, but for me it's observing what happens out there.
It's funny, I do find the brief process to be I come up with a lot of ideas in the brief.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they say, I think it's Rob Terry always talks about this, that it's either your first idea or your 100th, but you don't know until you go through it.
And Sarges do 100 boxes, so they make you think of the first 100 ideas and throw them away.
Yeah.
101st is always the best one.
Yeah, the first 100 are the ones that have been done before. Yeah. Usually.
Yeah.
I remember talking to the guys, whom was it? It was the guys that did all those Old Spice ads. What the hell are their names? So Craig Allen and Eric Carlman. And they were talking about their experience writing the Skittles Touch ad. You know, the one where he touches the desk and then it goes into Skittles. And you know, back then they'd walk out of the creative department with a brief like that and say, "Who wants it?" And every creative team would freak out. And you had to work overnight basically to come up with another 20 ideas every single day, and they had to be good. But they said that I think they wrote something in the order of 400 scripts for that one. But what's funny is they said that one was like number 35. So I mean, they came up with that idea, and the creative director's standards are so high that they said, "That's great, we'll keep that one." We kept them going for literally months. And then at the end of that just said, "Okay, this one's still our favorite," which probably made the team happy and quite sad that they had kept it, but that they had kept them working for that long. But you know, you just never know, they might have come up with an even better idea.
What's your favorite creative campaign that you've worked on to date?
Oh shit.
Okay. I still really like Product Testing Institute. So we, for Sony Ericsson, we handled the North American account. And Sony Ericsson in the US had the biggest problem ever. You know, very low brand awareness. It was like 2% awareness of Sony Ericsson as a brand. They were launching their first Android phone, which was a big challenge for them anyway. And they had the Apple iPhone. You know, everyone wanted the iPhone. So the challenge was, how do you get people to think about buying a smartphone without defaulting to iPhone? And we did this really fun series of videos. They were like a faux product testing institute where we get OAPs in and we get toddlers in and we get bodybuilders in and ex-rockers, and we kind of set them this series of tests of things they needed to do with their phone. And the whole idea was these kind of different product testing groups would very easily use the Sony Ericsson phone, but things like the iPhone and one of the BlackBerry models, and just a really fun campaign to work on. Some really fun creative, but I think more interestingly, the challenge of kind of breaking through and getting awareness of a brand against such a big brand like Apple, and not necessarily having the same money to be able to outshout or outspend them, was kind of like a big win for Sony Ericsson. So, yeah, I don't know, there were the usual millions and millions of views of it, but you know, the big thing for Sony Ericsson was they got a lot of the usual millions and millions. The big thing was actually, one of the KPIs was just getting people to the Xperia product page, and that was one of the biggest wins for us. It even won a Cannes award. It wasn't a TV advert, but it actually won a Cannes TV script award, if I remember correctly. So it's kind of it was a good one, and it was fun to work with.
It's like historically, like the best piece, probably the best peer creative piece I've done. I did with Rob. I could rethink it. It was the 3M trim line thing where we held it at a bus shelter, put in bulletproof glass and put $1 million inside it. And that was pretty cool. I was impressed from that. But that was a long time ago. You know, Dare stuff, I would have to say that the Whistler Film Festival stuff we did last year is probably the best integrated campaign, the best single executions as well as campaign, and just the most irreverent and the most, you know, well polished. And if I told you the budget that we pulled off 3 TV scripts and all of this guerrilla stuff, it's absolutely ridiculous. But I think it brought together the best of all our creativity and our production and our ingenuity and our sort of never say die sort of mentality, and just probably the funniest single ad as well with the Princess one. I also like the Amour TV ads that we did 2 years ago, the auditions for the adult films, which you can find on YouTube. I think it's Amour ads. You can find them on YouTube. A little risque, but yeah, I think those are my favorites.
Okay, well, thanks for having us today, guys.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Nice having you.
Come back again.